Comments made on the following paid commercial program are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time.
Welcome to the Money and Wealth Show. On the program this week, a tax tip with David Ingram, moneymercials, and we'll take a look at Canadian women's investing habits and priorities with a new survey from TD Waterhouse and our special guest, Jillian MacPherson. Welcome to the Money and Wealth Show. I'm Sterling Fox, and our special guest this week is a portfolio manager from TD Waterhouse. It's a pleasure to welcome Jillian MacPherson to the program. Hi.
Hi, thank you, Sterling.
Thanks for coming in. Boy, we got a lot to talk about, including lots of information about women and their investing choices, habits, preferences, and that sort of thing. A lot of what the information we're going to discuss here is just been released by TD Waterhouse in the form of their 10th annual Female Investor Survey. And this was conducted in late August and just released at the end of September. So we're talking some pretty fresh information here, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Have, in the 10 years that this poll has been conducted, have you noticed any changes, or does year after year serve to reinforce the existing condition?
I think if I look back at the past 2 years in the poll, what was quite interesting was obviously we've gone through some market turmoil. What you saw in those polls were females were very concerned about the market and sort of had retrenched themselves in their sort of investment philosophy to being super conservative. Now in this poll this year, we are seeing a lot of optimism, which I found quite encouraging.
Okay. And also, one of the questions that the pollsters at Environics put to the sampler, the audience, was what sort of financial information and advice did you learn from your mom? And the huge majority of female respondents said, not much.
I know, I thought that was quite interesting, and just relating it to myself, growing up, obviously my mother did not work, and she really didn't teach me much about money. However, when we wanted to go out and buy a nice pair of jeans, she would say, that's nice, dear, you need to save. And that was the extent of her advice.
Okay, because some of the categories, and this breaks down, I had to write it down, Jillian, because I want to make sure I get it right. 28% of the respondents said they had received zero information and or advice from their mothers growing up as girls. 24% said, yeah, mom said I should save. And that was the extent of the information exchange. 13% said pay cash and avoid credit. And then only 8% said, mom instructed me and taught me how to set a budget. The most astonishing number, Jillian, 3%, only 3% of women across Canada surveyed about what their moms had told them when they were little and growing up. Only 3% said, get an investment plan. Plan to invest your money. Does that surprise you?
No, actually it doesn't, because when I see a lot of people on a day-to-day basis and they come into my office, be it female or male, the females specifically though, will come in and they've been referred from someone, probably a client, and they come to me and say, okay, I'm tired of the volatility, I don't have a financial plan, can you get my house of cards in order?
Nationally, only 29% of women surveyed, again just this summer, said, yes, I do have a financial plan. So we can extrapolate from those numbers, Jillian, that basically 2 out of every 3 Canadian women do not have a financial plan. Does that surprise you?
No, and I think you and I have discussed this. I think more people spend more time researching what kind of car they're going to buy. They chat with their friends, they check the consumer reports, then they spend thinking about what their financial plan should be. How much should they be saving? How much are they going to need to retire on? How are they going to fund their children's education? Do they want an estate? How much of an estate should that be?
At what point does a woman sort of cross that line into the awareness that, you know, maybe I should get myself a little better organized here. It's just a little too scattered. Looking down the road, this isn't going to work out long term.
Speaking from personal experience,
Sure.
It would be when I left university, to go to university from high school, had to hold down 1.5 jobs in the summer, took the amount in my bank account in the beginning of September at the University of Western Ontario, and counted the number of days that I had to go and how much I had each day. And that was when the light went on in my head, and I thought, my goodness, I really can't afford to go out and buy those clothes that I was thinking. I think I'm actually going to have to get another job at Western, and that's when the budgeting started for me.
Oh, okay. How important is it to women who are anxious to formulate a plan and begin that investment process to have a female financial advisor as opposed to a male?
Great question. I think that perhaps females relate better to females,
Yeah.
and perhaps females can understand the plight of what we have to go through every day, which is, I think females have more expenses on a month-to-day basis. I think women spend more money on clothes, they spend more money on their appearance, they're probably much more likely to give gifts to family, and as such they have higher expenses. So I think women have a lot more to juggle on a day-to-day basis than maybe men do, and maybe women understand that better.
Right. As women begin to enter the field and recognize the need for investing, for budgets, for a competent financial advisor and all of that sort of thing, and again, you've been in the business for almost 15 years, what are the main differences that you've identified between women's investment habits and preferences versus your male clients?
I think men are much more apt to take risks in the market, and when they make a mistake, they will move on. Women in general tend to be a bit more conservative and think that they don't need to make a big return to retire on. For example, a woman might say to me, I'm just fine with GICs. Then I'll do her financial plan and I'll say, well, that's interesting. If you had your investments for the rest of your life and a 3% GIC, you would not be able to afford to retire. So once I pull that whole picture together, they understand I have to take some risk.
Okay, but risk, it sounds like to a woman, has a much different meaning than it does to a guy.
Absolutely. I think men perceive risk as, you've coined earlier today, is just men perceive sometimes the equity markets like a game.
Very much. I mean, there aren't too many guys watching that, no matter how stable and how organized their long-term plan may be, Jillian, most guys look at this whole thing as a big game. They look at the papers every day to find out what the score is. How's my team doing?
Absolutely.
And women just don't go there, do they?
No, I think actually you're right. Maybe perhaps women are just bigger picture. Give me where we are at the end of the year. Providing they feel confident in your ability, they would just rather have that conversation maybe 4 times a year, whereas a man would like to call you perhaps maybe twice a week. Where are we at? What's going on? Let's talk.
What's the minimum number of occasions any investor should set aside per year for that all-important face-to-face with his or her financial advisor?
It would depend obviously on the size of the portfolio and the complexity involved. But I would have to say 4 times a year would be adequate for most people. For a large portfolio on a discretionary basis, obviously I'm speaking to clients probably at least once a month.
Okay, so once a quarter is probably a good average.
Absolutely.
All right. Our guest this week is Jillian MacPherson, a portfolio manager with TD Waterhouse. Lots more of those Venus and Mars questions still ahead here on this week's edition of the Money and Wealth Show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc. Our project in Arizona is electrolytic manganese. We have a resource of 11 billion pounds, currently trading at $1.40 a pound. Our cost, 44 cents. For more information, go to our site at americanmanganeseinc.com or phone me direct at 604-531-9639.